all I heard her was laughing, like, ha ha ha. You think your God's gonna save you? I felt fear in my heart. Martinez. I have been walking with the Lord going on 3 years in April. My testimony basically starts where I am 4 years old, and my grandpa, my biological grandpa, had already passed away. So the guy that my grandma was with was just her boyfriend. I didn't know that until I got a little bit older. But around the age of 4, he was starting to sexually abuse me every time my mom and my grandma would leave the house. And one of the times where he physically abused me, didn't have nothing sexual to it. It was just a physical abuse. I accidentally broke a window by throwing a softball. I love sports and I was playing with it. So when I threw it, it broke a window. My mom and my grandma had already left. So when that had happened, he took me to his room and he made me hold on to the rails. Back then, it was just regular rails. It's none of like the bed sets we have now. So he had me holding on to the rails and he started to whip me with the belt. And he said that if I cried, that he was just going to hit me harder. So this is happening, at the around the age of 4. And he leaves the room and I ended up starting crying. Well, he walked back in and he started to hit me even more again. So that was one of the times he physically abused me. As far as the sexual stuff, and like I said, anytime my grandma and my mom would leave, he would take me to his room, and he would have me perform stuff on him. Like I don't know how deep we can get or how out there we can put it, but he would start to like suck on my chest. I'm 4 years old, so this is kind of like weird to me that this is going on. He's touching me in my private area. He's having me, grab him and also try to, suck on his chest and stuff like that. And, you know, as a 4 year old, when this was happening, um, I didn't really know how to process it. I just knew it was wrong. I knew it was bad. But for some reason, I don't know, I couldn't tell my mom. I couldn't say anything to anybody. Um, and as this was happening around the age of 5, my mom actually started taking us to church. And we were always lukewarm. We were always in and out of the church. But I remember a time where the pastor, they had a play for the church, and as soon as they were done, the pastor said, if anybody wants to come up to the altar and give their life to the Lord, come up. And keep in mind, I'm only like around 5 years old, 5 or 6, and I ran up there. I remember wearing a little dress and everything. I was the first one up there. I ran, and he even made a comment about that, that I ran up there. And that was the first time. I can't really remember the actual feeling I felt, but I do remember running up there. And ever since then, anytime something, physical abuse or sexual abuse was happening to me, in some type of way, I felt okay. Like I felt protected. I felt like I wasn't going to carry this for the rest of my life because, like I said, I knew it was wrong. I did feel disgusted and everything once, it was done. Um, and that just kind of went on and went on. Well, my family, I never dealt or did anything with witchcraft, but I was around it a lot. My mom was doing it, my sisters were doing it, trying to do things to like attract men and stuff like that. And my older sister, she always had her friends over. They were already, they were in a grade level before me. So they were, drinking, smoking weed. There was always parties at the house. And one of her friends actually took me to my room, and that was the first time that I ever had any type of sexual physical encounter with a female. Um, During that time, his name is Arturo, my abuser. He actually went to prison for selling weed. And then it's not like little amounts, it was like big amounts to where he did prison time for this stuff. So during this time he's in prison, and I'm kind of like fine. I'm okay. I thought he was gonna be gone forever. And then he ends up getting out again. And I freaked out. My heart sunk. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. And the sexual abuse started happening again. And he was kind of putting it out there. Like he was being more sneaky, if that makes sense. Like there'll be times where my mom would be right next to me, but facing the opposite way, and I can see eye to eye to him, and he'll be like throwing his tongue at me and stuff like that. There were times where we were in a pool. They always gave us the pool. We always set up the pool for the summertime, and there was a time when we were in there. And I was swimming out there by myself. It was nighttime. It wasn't like in the middle of the night or anything like that, but I was swimming, the sun had already went down, and he goes into the pool and he's pulling me like for me to sit on top of him type of stuff. So that whole time, I mean, we're in the water, thin shorts, like I can feel everything. But I thank God that it never got to a point where he actually penetrated. I think he was too scared because of he knew who my family was. And like I said, my mom was all into the witchcraft and stuff. And right before my mom actually went to this guy, I know they were reading like stones or something like that, rocks. Right before that had happened, I actually started to realize that during these sexual encounters that I was having with this man, even though it wasn't through penetration, I started to be okay with it. I started to actually get these feelings as if, I kind of liked it. Like, I don't know how to even explain it, but it was like a sexual feeling. I already knew, I started feeling these things and stuff. So I wasn't, um, I wasn't necessarily afraid, when it was actually happening, him touching me or him having, grabbing me and me touching him, stuff like that. And then there came a point where my mom and my grandma went to this witch doctor. And I remember them telling me, stay up here in the front, don't go past the curtain. I remember the curtain and everything. They had these shelves or these things where they had all types of witchcraft ornaments in there. And I'm looking through the glass, their counter is actually a glass, so I'm looking in there while my grandma and my mom are in the back. And they come out and we end up getting in the car, and I'm sitting in the center in the back seat. So my mom's driving, my grandma's in the passenger side, and we come to a stoplight. And I know exactly where it's at. I don't know if you know, but it's off of 90 East and Acme Road. We stopped right at the light. And I remember my mom looking in the mirror and asking me, has Arturo ever done anything to you? Right there, I knew they knew. I knew that this man said something, even though going in there, I'm like, this is dumb. They're not going to find nothing out. This is witchcraft or whatever. And sure enough, when my mom asked me that question, my heart sunk into my stomach. I knew for a fact that she knew something. And instantly, I started crying. And we got home in like 2.5 seconds. This was the west side. We lived in the south side, and we got there so quick. And I remember my mom, my grandma was sitting in the living room, my mom was there, and I remember my mom calling my aunt. Around that time, that age, I was already in my preteens and stuff. Um, my aunt and I were very close. She doesn't have any daughters, and I'm actually one of her godchild. And she was always, during the holidays, I would get presents and everything like that. Everybody else had their own godparent, but my aunt was my godmother. So, we were real close. So for her to hear that, she took off to our house so quick. And when she got there, I remember just sitting there watching them all pacing upset. And I remember them talking to him on the phone, telling him they knew everything that he was doing. And that if he comes home, like it's not going to be good for him. So he was actually at work when this was all going down. And when he got the call, he never came back home. He left straight to Mexico, and I never saw him again, never spoke to him ever again. Did I forgive him? Yeah, a long time ago. I know that the Lord has given me a gift of forgiveness. It's easy for me to forgive. I might hold on to a grudge, but as far as my heart posture when it comes to forgiving people, I can forgive real easy. So a lot of people didn't understand why or how I can forgive this man so easily, and this is because I'm still in the world. I'm not a Christian yet. Yes, I had gave my life to the Lord, but I'm still living, this worldly lifestyle. So once he was completely out of the picture, I felt okay. It was off my chest. They just didn't know to the severe degree of what he was doing. They just knew that he was doing something sexual. So my mom never knew that he whipped me, up until later on. So once he was gone, I've already, had sex with a woman, so I was already in that. And I told myself, this is something that I personally can control. Like, I'll be okay. Like, I'm not going to have no guy, just doing whatever he wants. Now I will be the one to be able to do that to a female. So it kept on, all the way to high school. I know it was obvious to my parents, my mom, but I never actually came out and told her, throughout all this stuff, I'm seeing demons in my room, living a homosexual lifestyle, already having those feelings. The guy's out of the picture, but I'm still seeing demons in my room. It got to a point where I was actually taunting them. I would tell them, "Oh, you can't slam this door," and then bam, they slammed the closet door. I've had them jump on top of me, hold me down. I've seen their faces, and it's so wicked and it's so scary. It would literally have you like choked up, not able to move, stuff like that. So all this stuff was going on, living a homosexual lifestyle. I was sexually abused, physically abused, and my family's into witchcraft. So imagine all of that as a child growing up until this point. I'm already getting older. I started smoking, I started drinking when hit high school. Um, I didn't want to drink, but because everybody else was doing it and I wanted to be validated, I started drinking. I remember my first drink was a Budweiser, and I literally took a sip and I was so sick the whole night. I woke up sick. So I knew I didn't want to do it, but everybody else was doing it, all my friends and stuff in high school. So I just kept doing it, got to a point where I actually was okay with the drinking. I got used to the taste, and I just kept on doing it. I kept living that lifestyle. I remember one time it was this girl that I no longer talk to, considered her my best friend. Her name was Janelle. And she had asked me, she goes, "All right, so now that you're hanging out with us, do you want to dress like a boy or do you want to dress like a girl?" And they dress like guys. So I was like, I'm gonna dress like y'all, So they would buy me some clothes and stuff like that, a little bit of wardrobe here and there, and then they would start giving me some of their clothes too. So my dressing went to basically guy clothes. I think it was around my junior year is when I actually cut off my hair. I was not the, how can I say it? I wasn't someone that the coaches liked. I wasn't like a fan favorite to them. So they were real mean with me. They would tell me I wasn't good enough, to be in a higher level of sport, because you got your freshman, you got your JV and all that stuff, and it goes higher and higher, right? They actually pulled me out of was it a practice one time, and just to literally tell me in her office that I wasn't good enough to play in a higher level. So I was also getting that, from my coaches. The day that I cut my hair, I actually had softball practice the very next day. And I remember going, feeling weird because I literally had long hair, and then from one day to the next, it's like cut off, and I remember her making a comment about it. She was cussing at me because I was just really shy. Like, I felt so awkward. I was trying to put on a hat, trying to fix myself, and she made a comment, and she was like, "Well, you shouldn't have cut off all your damn hair." I was like, that hurt me, you know what I mean? So just being saying hearing all this stuff from the coaches, it was real hurtful. And I've always been that type of person to try to build up a wall and be like, it's whatever, but not knowing that those words were actually sticking to me, and they were just building up and building up. So I'm in high school, I'm getting told this type of stuff from my coaches. um I started hanging out with, the jocks and the popular kids. And it just brought me to a lot more drinking, a lot more partying. It introduced me to doing using cocaine. Even though same thing, I did not want to do it. Like I said, I gave my life to the Lord at 4 years old. So anytime that I was with a female, anytime I was drinking, smoking, doing coke, like I felt it in my spirit. It was like if the Lord was telling me, don't do it. But I needed their approval. So I kept doing it, and it got to a point where I was actually drinking Tuesday through Sunday, and Mondays was like a relaxed day, basically. We're always going into the clubs, getting into fights, doing all kinds of stuff. And there was one time I had got into a relationship with this one girl, and we ended up being together for about 9.5 years total. Around 7.5 years, I was working at an armored company, you know, um, and the guy that I was on route with for a whole year straight, I opened up to him. He opened up to me. He was engaged. He knew I had, a girlfriend. And I ended up getting her a job there, but on the cash side. So we dealt with, the deliveries and stuff. They were the ones who did like separating the cash, putting it in the package, and then crossing it over to us. So when it hit the 3 month mark that she actually was working there, that's when I had told him, I wanted him to be our donor because I always wanted a family, I always wanted a child, I always wanted to be married. This is something that never went away. It was a desire of mine. So I had told him that, I trust you, like I would love for you to be our donor. And everything was okay, but the first red flag is when we actually went out with him and his fiance to a bar to like kind of meet each other, and for them to get to know each other, me and her to get to know the fiance and stuff like that. And the first red flag is he had told me that the fiance said that they should do it the natural way so it can be a lot faster. So when we went to the bar and we said that, I confronted her like, "Is this what you said?" She was like, "I never said that." So that was the first red flag. And I wanted the family so bad, I stuck with it. At first I was kind of like, wouldn't want, my partner to do it the natural way with a guy, and so or like, no, let's do it a different way. You've heard about the turkey baster, the syringe, or whatever it's called. We're like, let's just try that, let's see if that worked. We tried it one time, waited and stuff like that. It didn't happen. So they ended up started hooking up with each other behind my back and behind the fiance's back. So when I actually found out, I was actually sleeping on a friend's couch because I was always fighting with my mom, always in and out of the house and stuff. So around this time, I'm actually staying at a friend's house who actually works with her. So it was just so much, I felt so out of place. But I'm laying on these people's couch, and the girl that's supposed to be my partner is out with a guy that's supposed to be my best friend. Um, so it brought a lot of depression, having to be on route with this guy every day, having to see her at work every day, knowing what they were doing. It crushed me. It hurt me so bad because I had given my all to this relationship. I never cheated. I never spoke to anybody. So I was really hoping that this was going to work out, and so when I found out everything that they're doing, I literally wanted to kill myself. Keep in mind, I'm an armored, you know, security officer. I carry a gun and have my own weapon. So I pull up. I ended up calling my mom and was like trying to work it out with her. So she was like, you know, come stay with me. She was living at a boyfriend's house, but the boyfriend wasn't there because he was in jail at the time. So she was like, just come stay with me. So I pull in and I remember hurting so bad. And I literally grabbed my gun and I had it to my head. And I said, Lord, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm hurting too much. And I remember sitting there with my hand on the trigger and it's loaded. There is a bullet in the chamber. I could have easily pulled it. It could have easily slipped. But I was just sitting there with the gun to my head saying, Lord, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. It hurts too much. I don't want to be here anymore. And I remember just sitting there crying and crying. And all of a sudden, I felt something come over me like peace. And I just put the gun back in my holster. I remember going inside, and because I had been crying, my mom saw me. She's like, "What's wrong?" And I told her, I was like, take the gun away from me before I kill myself. And my mom jumped up, she grabbed it. She didn't even know how to work it. She just grabbed it, unloaded it, and she put it away. And I remember just falling on the bed and crying. And she just sat there with me, just, you know, telling me everything's gonna be okay, trying to calm me down. But she allowed me to let it out. And after that, I can't remember how many days, it might have been the very next day or like a week or so after that had happened. I remember pulling in to the same spot and I actually called onto the Lord. I said, Lord, I don't want to hate him. I don't want to hate her. I don't want to be mad anymore. Just take this feeling away from me. And I remember the moment I said that, I felt something yanked out of my chest, like literally come out. And I remember when I looked down, I saw smoke came straight from my chest. And it was like I'm guessing that was the first time I had like some type of deliverance. Now that I'm thinking about it, because I felt so much peace and so much love in that moment that it actually carried on with me when I went to work. I no longer was looking at it in a weird way. You know, I just counted my loss and I said, it is what it is. I'm going to come to work. You know, I'm going to just do what I got to do and just go home. That's it. You know, I loved my job. I loved what I did. And after that, I actually met these people. They were doing Herbalife. So I was like, you know what? I will give it a try. You know, I wanted to start going to the gym, start taking care of myself because at this time I'm overweight. I'm like hitting already over 190 pounds, and I've never been that heavy before. And so I meet these people, you know, I go get signed up as a distributor for them, and they invited me to a fit camp. So I went, did the fit camp, you know, wasn't the greatest. And I was so out of shape, I couldn't even do one push-up. But I like the environment. I love that everybody there was pushing you, even if you weren't doing the best. They kept pushing. They kept, you know, the type of motivation when they're yelling like, ah, keep going, keep going. You know, it actually gave me that push, that drive. And once I started taking the products, you know, I started changing my eating habits. Keep in mind, I'm still living with this girl, you know, so it's still kind of awkward. I'm having to put all my stuff in a corner, you know what I mean? Do my shakes and then, you know, buy my meal before I get there because I didn't have enough money to, you know, basically pay for everybody. So I'm eating healthier, you know, and I'm actually dropping weight like super fast. And it went so fast that I didn't even have time to go buy myself more clothes. You know, I lost so much weight. It was crazy. So I actually started to feel a lot better. You know, I started feeling happy again. I was very happy with my results. I had already dropped over 90 pounds. And so I was like, you know what, I'm good. At work, nothing bothered me at all with them. You know, I would talk to him, hey, you know, let's go get this route done, whatever. And I remember her calling me one time. I had just got home, and she called me. She's like, I need to talk to you. And I was like, what, you're pregnant? And she was like, well, I just gotta talk to you in person. I was like, yeah, you're pregnant. So I go dumb. I went over there and met up with her, knowing what the result was gonna be. She comes in, shows me the stick. She's pregnant. And right there, it hit my heart because that was supposed to be my child. You know, I put my all into this relationship. So there goes the enemy again, you know, speaking to me like that's your kid, that's your kid, that's your kid. So I ended up going back into the relationship. And for the next 2 years, like I said, at this point it was 7.5. I stayed with her another 2 years. Um, it was just a bunch of back and forth. She still was texting him. I had got an apartment here with my mom, and I had my own room. Ended up having her come over, staying with me. And throughout the whole pregnancy, I'm still doing my Herbalife, I'm still doing my fit camp, but I'm coming home to somebody who's been literally talking to this guy all day long. So I go from a happy environment to coming to a depressing, sad, angry environment. And it kept beating me and beating me. But because I wanted my son, I knew he was going to be a boy. I wanted him so bad. I stuck with it. I stayed with it. I went through the torment, everything. And it really did harden my heart for her. At this time, I got to a point where my son was already born. They actually allowed me to go to the hospital. They wouldn't allow him because they at work, they knew the situation. It was supposed to be my child, stuff like that. So I was there for the birth. My son has my name. Um, and the first and second year, it was just a bunch of back and forth, a bunch of arguing. Nothing was ever going right, nothing ever settled down. It was just always fighting. So I got to a point where my heart had already hardened and I ended up kicking her out. I told her, "You can leave my son here." I go, "But you have to leave." But of course, that wasn't going to happen. I wasn't biologically the mother. So she took him, she left, and for the third year of his life, I wasn't allowed to be in his life, at all. Um, the Going back the first 2 years, this guy was just trying to be in the situation, didn't want to really be a father. He was just there because he knew that my son's mother was easily to go with him, and go do their thing or whatever. Um, so I had already, I had even told him, if you're gonna be a father. You know what I mean? If not, stay out of the way. Let me be the parent. Like, just get out of the picture. Well, around the age of 3, she ended up getting with somebody else. And I was doing my thing. I'm not gonna lie. I was, just running around with whoever, whatever. And around the age of 3 for him, I wasn't allowed to be in his life no matter how hard I tried. She had gotten another relationship. So I ended up just, going off. I went back to my friends. I was drinking again. I did not drink so much to the point where it made me gain my weight again. Eating properly, the working out. So I still stayed small, I guess. I still stayed fit. I was still working out in my room, everything. And I went back to drinking and stuff. And I ended up meeting this one girl through Instagram. She liked one of my pictures. I went and liked one of hers. And then it just kept going back and forth to the point where we're actually talking to each other. She said that I motivated her, the way my pictures were coming out, how thin I was from where I was big into small, comparing them. She actually liked the videos that I was making and stuff like that. So I was like, well, let's meet up. You know, just so happens she lives in Houston, but her family is here in San Antonio, the majority of her family. So she was actually coming down for a family reunion. So that's when I met up with her. And that was the day I ended up getting into a relationship with her, and it came to where we were going back and forth to Houston, San Antonio, to a point I was like, you know what, just come live with me. That's it. I'm still living in my mom's apartment. I got my 1 bedroom. So she actually comes and she has 2 kids, but they didn't come with her because the mom was the one who was actually taking care of them most of the time. So she came to live with me and everything was good, but I started drinking heavy. I started getting back into the clubs. I wasn't smoking, I wasn't doing coke or anything like that, but I was drinking a lot. I was going out every weekend. And my mom knew the situation. She didn't like it at all. So I ended up moving out, getting our own place. By this time, her daughter, I had told her, you need your kids. Like I said, I've always wanted a family. So I was like, no, you need to be a mother to your kids. So we got to get your daughter, at least your daughter, start off with her first. So she ended up coming and we ended up getting a house, which was literally right around the corner from my apartment. And we were there for about a year. Throughout that whole year, that process, we finally got her son to come over too. And we were there, we had our family coming over, we're always going out. I came to a point where I actually proposed to her at one of the bars that we would go to all the time. And I told my mom about it, and my mom was so upset. You know who she who she is, who my mom is, but she was upset. She didn't accept it at all. So when it was being done, the whole proposal thing in front of everybody, I can see in the corner my mom's not even looking. She's facing the opposite way. And she will tell you that herself. But yeah, I getting, doing the whole proposal thing, getting on one knee, all that stuff. In my mind and in my heart, I knew for a fact this is not gonna work out. Like I just knew it, but I was forcing it because I wanted that family so bad. I wanted the marriage so bad that I was willing to force it. So we get the whole engagement thing going, and there'll be times when we'll be at her aunt's house, and they'll be planning in front of me, and I'm just sitting there drinking, like looking at it, like I know for a fact that this is just not gonna work out whatsoever. I knew I didn't want to marry her. Um, but I was just stuck in that whole thing of family. I wanted it so bad. So there came a point where I didn't know my mom was praying for me. I didn't know anybody was praying for me. Um, and when later on, I actually found out that my mom was actually praying. It wasn't just her; it was a group of people. So during that time, I'm sitting in my room and I'm crying, and she comes in. The girl that I was engaged to comes in. She's like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "Just leave me alone. I need time by myself." And I was crying because I wanted my son. I missed my son. It had already been a whole year that I hadn't seen him. I think it was actually over a year, and it just got to a point where I was like, you know what? I even told the girl that I was with, I'm gonna call his mom because I want to see him. So I get on the phone and I called, and I was telling her, like, look, like this has gone too far. Like I want to see my son. Like he is my kid. He's my son. And I actually heard the Lord tell me that while I was in the room, telling me that is your son and you will see him again. I literally heard God's voice tell me that. So when I'm calling her and I'm telling her he's my son, like I need to see him. And she goes, it's crazy that you're even calling because me and then the girl that she was with, she's like, we actually spoke about it. And we don't think it was right for us to take him away from you, knowing how much he loved you and how much you loved him. So we're going to let you see him again. So all of us, we ended up meeting at Brackenridge, which is the park here in San Antonio. And, I see him coming. He had a little bag full of toys and he's walking to me. And it's like he knew exactly who I was. Because right when he came up to me, I got down on my knees and I opened my arms to him. And his mouth just dropped. And he just stared at me with a big old smile with his mouth open. And I was like, you remember me, babe? And he just kind of walked right by me acting silly, and we ended up, me and him, I took him to the water and we were just throwing out the fishing line and talking and telling him that I missed him. We were playing with his little toys and stuff like that. So that was the day that I actually got my son back, and he's been in my life ever since, and he just turned 7 this past February. And so during this time I have him now, I'm getting him every weekend. I find out that the girl that I'm engaged to doesn't like my son for whatever reason. Yeah, being real ugly with him. Even the daughter and the son were telling me that, hey, she yells at him when you leave. If I go to the store or something, she's like, you being ugly. So that right there threw me off with her as well. And then she had friends that would come over, from Houston. We'll be there out in the porch drinking, or we'll be going out to the clubs and stuff like that. And I found out on her phone that she's actually talking to somebody else. So once again, I'm in this relationship. I'm being committed, not talking to anybody, not, cheating or anything like that. And trying to, like I said, I knew I didn't want to marry her, but I knew I wanted the relationship. So find out she's talking to somebody else, comes to a point where I'm arguing with her. Her friends are even arguing with her, and they're telling her that she's wrong for what she's doing. Excuse me. And we ended up arguing. We ended up fighting. At one point, I had to tell the kids go to the room because she was trying to go for my gun in the closet. Keep in mind, I'm still a security officer. I still do security, right? So I have my gun in the closet and she's drunk and she's trying to go for it. So I'm there struggling with her. Her friend is struggling with her. It gets to the point where I actually call my son's mom and like, hey, come pick him up because this is what's going on. I called my mom, I called my sister, hey, I need y'all to come get my stuff. This is what's going on. The cops show up. It's like the whole block in that corner, that little section that we had was completely full of cops. They let me grab my stuff out and everything. And I honestly thought I wasn't going to go back. But I ended up going back like a week or two later. Yeah, so I fell back into all of that. Same thing. Here I am gaining all this weight. I'm still depressed, but I don't know why I'm going back. And I'm there again for another couple months until it gets bad again. Not only did I find out she's talking to somebody else behind my back, now we're fighting again. Now we're arguing to the point where, okay, the cops are gonna come, all this stuff. I tried my best to like just resolve it, don't call the cops, nothing like that. And I believe that night her friends kind of put her in check and told her she needs to stop. So I ended up, going to my room. She stayed in the living room. Um, I remember that I think it was the weekend after that, my son came and I'm sitting in the room. And keep in mind this is already nighttime. So she's in the living room, her kids are in their room, and I know she's talking to somebody on her phone. And so I'm sitting there on the bed and I'm looking at my son and I'm like, man, this is not a life for him. I can't do this anymore. And I literally called on to the Lord. I said, Lord, I'm done. I've said it many times before. I never really meant it, but I was like, I was done. I told the Lord, I said, look, Lord, I'm done. I will do whatever you want me to do. What do I do? Do I stay here? Do I leave? The moment I said that, within seconds, I literally heard the voice of God telling me, get up and leave, and I'm gonna do the rest. And I remember looking up, like, did I just hear that? And I looked at my son to see if he heard anything, but he didn't hear nothing. He was just there on his iPad. He was on his back. He had his foot crossed over one knee, and he's just there, dangling his foot back and forth. And I'm just staring at him like, okay, he didn't hear that at all. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna do whatever you say, Lord. So I get up and I tell her like, hey, let's go sit outside real quick. And I'm sitting down on the porch and I'm looking up at the stars and I tell her, I'm like, look, I can't do this anymore. I was like, I have to go. Like, I'm very depressed here. I feel like I'm dying here. I feel like I'm suffocating. And I just had a conversation with the Lord and he told me to get up and leave. And she stood up and she was already storming back into the house, cussing me out, telling me, to F and leave. And then she slams the door. I'm sitting there and I look up at the stars and I'm like, okay, Lord, I'm gonna do this. Like, this is it. I'll do whatever you want me to do. So I go back inside to the room. Me and my son sleep on the bed. She stayed in the living room. The very next morning, I didn't grab anything of my stuff. I had a brand new TV flat screen, brand new couches. My bed was in there. I was completely so done that I didn't take anything with me. I put my shoes on. I grabbed Zane and his bag, and which is, with his clothes and his toys, and we left. And till that, I think it was maybe like a month, I still hadn't gone back over there, even though it was so easy because she lived right around the corner from my apartment. I was like, no, like I'm completely done. Go to my mom's, right, and I'm sitting there, and at this time my mom has a roommate, sister Anna, and I'm sitting on the couch and I'm crying. And she's like, what's wrong, sis? And I was like, I'm done. Like, I don't want this no more. And she's like, are you sure? I was like, yeah, I'm sure. Like, I'm so fed up with everything. I feel so depressed. And she's like, okay. She's like, do you understand what you're about to lose? You're about to lose your friends. You're about to lose the partying, the drinking, the lifestyle. And I was like, I don't care. I'm willing to give it all up for the Lord. And she goes, okay, well then let's do this. So she reaches out her arm. We're holding hands, and she's leading me into a prayer of repentance and breaking soul ties with the lifestyle, the drinking, the friends, everything. Uh, I didn't, nothing necessarily happened there like you see most people do, go through the deliverance, screaming and stuff. I was just crying a lot, but I really did feel peace at that moment. And I went to work. I was already work at this point. I'm working at a bank. I'm a security officer. I'm working at a Frost Bank. I had already been working there maybe 2 years, and I go to work and I'm taking my Bible with me. So during lunchtime, I wanted to read. And I go to read, and the moment I open it and I look at the words, like I couldn't even see what it said. All of a sudden, I just felt so sick to my stomach. And I stood up and I turned around and I started throwing up in the trash can. And I called my mom. Well, it just so happens that her and Sister Anna were with each other in the car. And I'm crying and I'm screaming to them, like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm throwing up. And they're like, well, did you eat something? I'm like, no, I just got to lunch. I was like, I felt fine. I opened the Bible. I was about to read, and they started screaming, hallelujah, praise Jesus. And I'm freaking out on the phone, throwing up. I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, you're being delivered. It's coming out of you. So when they told me that and I was done, throwing up and stuff, that spirit of the homosexuality was completely gone. I no longer felt, how can I say, I didn't have those thoughts. I didn't have those feelings. And I knew that I was going through that process when my mom was praying for me. She actually had told me later on that she was praying. So right before I left my mom's and spoke to the Lord, I was already feeling nauseated of even looking at a girl. I didn't want to do nothing with her. I didn't want to look at nobody. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to do anything. So I know that process was happening. And that day I actually got my deliverance is when I opened up the Bible. So in my walk, I realized that a lot of people, sometimes they'll have their deliverance right then and there. Some people will be like an hour later, or some people will be like a day later. For me, it was a whole day later. It didn't happen for me right there, but I was crying. So I guess you can count that as some type of deliverance. But as far as the throwing up and feeling that spirit completely gone is when I was there the next day at work and I opened up my Bible trying to read. Yeah, so it was crazy. I know I forgot to mention there was a time where we actually, me and this girl, we left the bar. The kids stayed, they always stayed at home, which was something that I didn't like. To me, it was kind of like, if we're gonna go out anywhere, we gotta go somewhere where the kids can go, you know. But we were always at the bar, so we're going home and I'm driving, it's already nighttime, and all of a sudden I turn and I look at her, she's completely out of her seatbelt. I did not see her move at all. And her back is up against the window. She's hunched over. Her whole face changed. Her voice changed. And it was so demonic. And all I heard her was laughing, like, ha ha ha. You think your God's going to save you? I'm telling you, I didn't know anything about manifestations. I didn't know anything about demonic spirits, like in a person, but I felt fear in my heart. Like I felt my heart pound, but I didn't even know anything about authority or anything. All I did was snap my finger at her and I told her, sit down. And she sat down right away, put her seatbelt on. So when we're there at home, we're walking back and forth and we're kind of just looking at each other. We finally stopped and I was like, do you know what you told me? She was like, I know what I said. She goes, but that wasn't me. So that was, I guess you can say, like one of the times where I was actually encountering an actual demon versus from when I was younger. It was so crazy. Like, and throughout my walk, what I've learned is that anything that happens to us, regardless if it's good or bad, trials and tribulations, stuff like that, everything has to go through the Lord first. So Satan has to answer to our Father in heaven. So when stuff happens to us, um, I feel like the enemy has to go ask permission first. That's why the Lord says to just continue going, right? Endure to the end. He's always with us. Do not fear. I believe it's 365 times in the Bible that he literally says, do not fear. So when we go through things, knowing that he is with us, that's how I perceive that whole little encounter with that demonic spirit was the fact that my mom was praying for me. I was already nauseated with women, like just even the thought about it. So when that actually happened, what the Lord revealed to me was he wanted to do something worse to me, but the Lord said, no, I'm about to pull her out. That was the revelation I got. Yeah. So that was one thing I forgot to mention, but that was a crazy encounter. I like I said, I didn't know I had authority even living in the world. You know, I snapped at my finger and I told her to sit down, and right away she sat down. So, you know, now in my walk I know what that meant. I had authority over that demon. So it was crazy, but yeah, so now here I am, you know, church that I'm attending is Supernatural Life San Antonio. I love my pastors. They're very humble people. You know, back then I didn't like to take correction, but you know, I've gotten to a point where not only has the Lord humbled me, but He's allowed me to take correction from these pastors, and it's been amazing. They're not the type to like suppress your calling. They're more like, no, get up there type of thing. You know, they'll push you out there, and they believe in what the Lord is doing in my life. And so I just, you know, I give honor, I give glory to the Lord, and I honor my pastors. You know, they're very supportive in everything. I've never been so open about my stuff until I met them. It was like I have no problem telling them anything that I'm going through, anything that I'm feeling, any dreams I have, whether they're sexual, demonic, or anything like that. You know, I'm able to come to them. So I know that the Lord has placed me in a good place, and that's here with the supernatural life. So that is my testimony. The Lord delivered me completely from the homosexual lifestyle, the drinking, the partying, the clubbing, all that stuff. When I gave my life to the Lord, I lost every single friend, every single one of them, even the best friends, you know. So um I didn't feel upset. I didn't feel sad about it. I felt peace and love from the Lord. So the Lord can do it for me, you know, me forgiving my abuser, you know, forgiving, you know, my father's back in my life when I gave my life to the Lord. He came right back in. And if the Lord can put the relationship, all that time lost with my dad, if the Lord can fix all that, repair it, He can pull me out of that lifestyle that is just so like out there. It's just so how can I say, is so much of a bondage, that lifestyle, because you're free to do anything you want in that lifestyle. It doesn't matter if you got friends or not. You know, people sleep around all the time, but that lifestyle by itself, it has such a strong bondage. There's so many demonic spirits that like keep them in that, because in their mind they're thinking they're having fun. They're thinking that, oh, this is what love is. It's not love. The moment you go against that lifestyle, that love had never existed. The demonic spirits start to come out, and it comes out in rage, it comes out in hate, and some people even get murdered for going against that type of lifestyle, you know. But you know, like I said, if the Lord can do it for me, He can do it for anybody who's willing to give it all up, because that lifestyle brings nothing but depression. You know, like I said, people are sleeping around with each other, cheating on each other. It's not something that the Lord has ordained. He ordained man and woman, one man, one woman, to be one in marriage. And that is something that now I know. Back then I was like, oh, I'm kind of born this way, so it is what it is. The Lord loves me, right? You know, so I was very deceived, but the Lord has shown me the truth. You know, He's delivered me from all of that. So I give Him all the honor, I give Him all the glory, and I know if He can do it for me, He can do it for anybody. Majority of those that are in this lifestyle, majority of them, either they were sexually abused or somebody in their generation was sexually abused, and it just got passed down to them. What I can honestly say is the biggest thing that you can start off by doing is forgiving that person. You know, when you really truly start to walk in the Lord, you can honestly say it was never that actual person. It was the demonic spirit that that person has in them. That spirit is dwelling in them is what's controlling them. So it was easy for me to forgive Arturo for what he did to me. So that is my main thing. Forgive, let it go, ask the Lord to remove that hurt and that pain and to make you whole again, because that's what He had to do for me. In order for me to forgive people, I had to ask Him to remove that hate, because that hurt comes in like crazy, and it's deception. It starts to put other stuff in you. You start to have fear of man, you start to have hate towards that person, and your heart gets hardened. And that is one thing that I can honestly say is to forgive that person. Whoever has done any wrong to you, whether it was your mother not around, your dad not around, somebody sexually abused you, or even just straight rejection from friends and family, the biggest thing is forgive. Once you forgive, the enemy can't hold that against you, like saying, oh no, you still hate them, so I still have authority. No, you forgive that person, you ask the Lord to bless them and protect them, and if they can be saved, the Lord's going to save them. So that's my main thing right there, is to forgive. First forgive, and then forgive yourself for holding on to that hurt so much, because it just brings depression. It brings a lot of hurt, a lot of your heart will be hardened, and that's not something that's good to walk in at all. And that's what I had to do. I really had to truly forgive, not just my abuser, but those who rejected me. I had that orphan spirit, because I was in that lifestyle specifically for them to love me. And I had to find out the hard way that when I gave my life to the Lord, that love that they said they had was never even true. It was not true love. True love is what the Lord did on the cross for me and you and everybody else. With me and my mom, she didn't necessarily know how to deal with it. So at one moment, we were, like I said, we were lukewarm. So it was kind of like, oh, I'm gonna love you no matter what. But then when she started, being more involved with the Lord and the things of the Lord, I felt personally, I felt rejected, because I had exes that would still come around. And to me, what I saw, or what the enemy showed me, was, why don't you accept me as this way, but you accept my ex in the house? You know what I mean? So if a parent right now is dealing with a child who is living that lifestyle, the best thing that I can tell the parent is to make sure you check yourself first before you try to correct your child. Make sure that your heart posture is correct. Make sure that you're walking with the Lord, because that is the only way that you're going to be able to get to your child and get the message to them. Is going to be the love of Christ. Don't try to correct them so much. Yes, it's good to teach your children the word of God, but don't do it in a way where it's condemning them, because the easiest thing that a parent can do is make their child feel condemned, and that child, it blocks off everything. You can't minister to your kid anymore. So the best thing for a parent is to make sure that their heart posture is correct, and to pray about it, because the Lord is going to be the one to give them the words to be able to minister to the child. So show them the love of God, because like I said, with me, I didn't feel like I had the love of God, because everything was always lukewarm. So that right there would be a good start for a parent, is pray for your child. That's exactly what my mom did. My mom, when I was with this girl, that's all she did. Pray. She prayed to the point where she told the Lord, make her so sick to that lifestyle, make her so sick to the things of that lifestyle. And that's exactly what he did. I was feeling so nauseous. I didn't want to do nothing. So prayer is going to go a long way, but make sure that the parent loves the way Christ loves. Let Christ show his love through the parent to the child. That's going to be the best way.